Hi, I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me Kevin Kelleher, who is the President and CEO of Cartus Corporation here in Danbury. And Cartus is a global mobility management company servicing Fortune 1000 companies in 160 countries around the globe, with 2,700 employees, about 1,700 here in Danbury, and about close to $500 million in revenues. That's billion in revenues, excuse me. Welcome, Kevin.
Well, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Great
Looking
to
forward
have
to
you.
the night.
Great to have you. I almost downsized you quite a bit
That's
there.
right.
What happened?
I was worried. I
I was like, whoa.
I didn't look at the financials before I left tonight. I said, do you know something I don't know?
Sorry about that. But I thought it might be helpful for our viewers to hear from you about your philosophy of leadership. But before we do that, can you take us through a little bit about your personal background, your education, and early career and history?
Sure. You have a lot of time on this show?
Yeah.
Actually, I grew up in Connecticut. I was born in Derby, grew up in Ansonia, Connecticut, played a lot of my high school sports at Ansonia High School, so I'm proud to be a Charger out of the Valley. Went to Fairfield University on an athletic scholarship and played baseball there. After pursuing a professional career both in baseball and football, which would be another story for probably another show, I ended up settling here in Danbury. And my first job was actually for a company that no longer exists, but I think many of the viewers, at least in the local area, would remember the B.J. Dolan Company, fuel oil and masonry supplies, and I actually was a door-to-door salesman.
Oh, really? That's an era gone by.
Selling fuel oil door-to-door to homeowners and contractors building new homes in the area.
Wow. So you really started out tangentially in the home or housing business.
I guess so, yeah. I guess housing and real estate's always been in my blood, I guess you'd say. Yeah, so I started off heating homes.
Yeah.
And today we're probably much more focused on the movement of employees and families that live in homes across the world.
And then how did you make the move from that into, it wasn't originally Cartus, it was...
It was Home Equity at the time, located in Wilton on Route 7. And I made the move because my wife told me I needed to make more money.
Oh, really?
And she saw an ad in the paper and said, hey, there's a company in Wilton that's interviewing for people for, at that point, entry-level jobs right out of college.
Yeah.
And a number of friends that I went to college with at Fairfield were working there, and that should have, in its own sense, almost said maybe I shouldn't go there because they were all rugby players.
Oh, really?
But
on the other team?
On the other team. But I ended up getting a job, and my first job was handling properties in West Virginia and Periphery, Pennsylvania. I'll never forget it, traveling around and looking at real estate and helping homeowners sell their homes and working with the real estate community in those states.
And then, of course, Home Equity then merged and was acquired. There's been a lot of shifts and changes.
Yeah, it's morphed over the years. Home Equity became PHH. PHH was purchased in 1997 by, at that time, a company known as HFS. HFS had also, at that time, acquired Coldwell Banker Relocation. And so in 1997, they decided to bring these two and a smaller third relocation company together and create what at that point was HFS Mobility, then to become Sendit Mobility, to become Cartus, which it is today. And I was fortunate enough to be made president in 1997.
And so your path along the way was fairly progressive with increasing scope and responsibility. Is that?
It was, although I think as I look back at it, I probably didn't recognize that I was on a path, although I always had an aspiration to know that I wanted to lead at some point in time. And in your earlier years, you're probably less cognizant of what those leadership skills that will be required are, and perhaps whether you're witnessing those or not. But I did have a variety of jobs over the years. I was in account management. My first job was actually managing the General Electric account. It was extremely proud for me to, come out of selling fuel oil and also to come out of the valley and really be on my path, what I thought, to what would be a great career, and to take on such a huge organization like GE was really a thrill for me. I also worked with IBM and UPS in those years, and from there I had the opportunity to start up some new divisions in the company, work in strategic planning, run sales, run client relations, and in 1997 I actually asked for this job.
Oh, you asked for it?
I asked for it.
Take us through kind of
well,
how that happened.
I think that's one of the principles that I would tell anyone listening either today or any of the younger employees that I speak to at our shop, and that is you have to position yourself for what it is that you want in life, and then you have to have the courage and probably a little bit of ego and a lot of self-confidence and self-awareness thrown in to be able to know that if there's something that you think you can do, then you go after it. And so at the time of merger, 3 companies coming together, a president from one of the companies leaving, an opportunity for a new person to come in with perhaps fresh vision and fresh energy, and I thought that was me. So I asked for the opportunity. I was given that opportunity.
So you said, hey, I can do that.
I can do that job.
So you mentioned a minute ago that I didn't really realize at the time that I was on this career path, and so now looking back, you know, hindsight's 20/20, I can say, okay, yeah, this is sort of unfolded. Take us through a little bit about what your mindset was like then as you were working through this, you know, through your, now it seems like a career path, maybe then it didn't. You know, what were you thinking at the time, and then what have you learned, and what advice would you give to people?
Yeah, I've got a 26-year-old son and a 28-year-old daughter, and they're very similar to many of the employees that work in our organization worldwide today. And I think as you go through life, you look at different stages of life based upon what the influences are, what the pressures are that you're going through. So, you know, having and starting a family, buying your first home, wondering whether you can make your first mortgage payment.
So developmental life stages, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that awareness of what's going on in the current is sometimes overlooked because you're so wrapped up in everything that's, you know, going on in your daily life. But I think as you age, and you gain some perspective on what business is all about and what opportunity within business is all about, you start paying much more attention to what's going on around you, and you start looking for mentors, and you start emulating leadership or leaders that inspire you to be perhaps better than you thought you can be. And so I think that awareness is the key word as to who you want to be, who you currently may be, and then how you take skills and apply those skills to becoming something perhaps that you aspire to be longer term.
So stepping back and kind of taking stock and getting perspective.
Absolutely.
So share with us, did you have a defining moment where you sort of said to yourself, hey, this is what I want and this is what I need to do to get there?
I think there's a lot of answers in that question. I wouldn't say that there was a defining moment. I always knew that leadership was something that I was very comfortable in, from being captains of sport teams to feeling very comfortable speaking to audiences. I always felt, again, a combination of self-confidence, self-awareness, and a little bit of ego thrown in. And if you want to add a dose of luck into that, I think the formula works pretty well. So I knew what I wanted to be, and I knew I could be that.
You knew you wanted to be a leader.
Yeah, I always felt good taking charge and inspiring people and creating vision and analyzing the opportunity and creating a strategy and collectively trying to bring groups of people around that strategy and work towards a common goal. So I knew that was me. And then it was just a matter of finding the best opportunity to be able to employ those skills. So I wouldn't say it was a defining moment. It was probably much more of a journey of awareness.
So it sounds like it was sort of part of who you were as you developed, and primarily in the sports arena, which then you could transfer.
I think the sports background, although the sports background was really no different than any high school athlete coming up today aspiring to maybe play at the next level, having the opportunity to play at the next level and seeing what it takes to make it then that much further again, whether it was getting a college scholarship or whether it was being attractive to pro teams, whatever your sport may be. It's the hard work and diligence and awareness at whatever age that you suddenly realize that if I want to get to where I want to go, I am only really answering to my own desires and the amount of time and energy I put into that effort. So that certainly helped. I think the other thing was very critical for anyone today aspiring to leadership is to look for role models. And we hear so much today of people talking about are there role models? Should athletes be role models? Should business leaders be role models? And certainly as we listen to the press right now, we're listening to the whole economic churn, we're listening to bonuses, we're listening to compensation of CEOs, we're listening to everything that revolves around that. But there are plenty of opportunities for anyone to look for people that can help them become a better, whether it's leader or parent or father or teacher or customer service representative, whatever it may be. Too often I think organizations put in mentor programs.
Yeah,
And they think
yeah.
that that's the solution. They say, well, we're going to assign you to Susan, and she's going to be your mentor.
Yeah.
And we don't know whether Susan or Mary or Joe is viewed in the organization as truly a leader, or whether they're viewed as, well, they're really not the best person that you should be aligned with. So I think it's really, again, self-awareness, self-confidence. It's the responsibility of any individual to find weaknesses in their own skill set, personality, and then find people that have those strengths and study those, emulate those, seek to develop those skills based upon what they watch. I mean, today if public speaking was a weakness, you'd have no greater person to look to than our president-elect.
Right.
From an oratory skill, he's got a gift.
Yeah.
So to be able to say, well, I want to emulate that. I want to build
Yes.
that skill. I want to build that style. I don't want to become his style, but I want to take the best of what he has and integrate it into the best of me.
So how did you go about, so it sounds like you were very conscious about identifying mentors, and take us through a little bit about how you did that, and what was your kind of key learnings and gift from at least, your first mentor. I'm assuming you've had several.
Well, you don't know, I think when you're younger, you don't know you have a mentor until you reflect back on what was it that influenced where you either are at this point in your life, and then when you take stock of where you want to go.
So it's that retrospective look.
It's a
again.
retrospective look. I think if I looked back, certainly my parents, my history, I am a product of blended, I guess, families, in that my father and mother were blue collar, and my dad never went past the 6th grade. My mother worked nights at a department store, counting how many dresses the ladies tried on in the dressing room. And yet my father-in-law is, was a nationally recognized anesthesiologist, so professional mastery. So be able to combine those two perceptions and perspectives of what it took to get to where you got to, hard work and education, and then combine that into what is it that I need to bring to my life. I also remember going back to my earliest days, probably the first inspirational role model I had was the mayor of Ansonia. And,
really?
Yeah, and because my best friend, that was his dad. But he was a man in a suit, and a man who stood in front of people and spoke, and a man who inspired people to dream of what the city could be and how it could become better. And he was the gentleman that allowed me to touch John Kennedy's hand when he drove through the motorcade running for president back in 1964, I guess, 63. And it was a fascinating experience. So from that, it was, I think, as I reflect back, there was an inspiration there that allowed me to think, well, maybe I could be more than what I thought I could be at that point in time. And then as you go through life and business...
What sounds like it influenced you at the time, but maybe you weren't consciously aware of it, and you reflect back on it now, and you say, those were key influences.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't as if you were identifying, saying, I want to emulate that person.
Absolutely.
And yet now with your learnings, what you're recommending to people is be conscious about it and actively look for people.
Reflect.
Yeah.
Reflect on your past and understand what it was that inspired you or motivated you to be who you are at this given moment, and then look forward with vision as to what you want to do with your life for the next whatever amount of time you put on that, 6 months, a year,
Be proactive about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I interrupted you. Were you going to take that a little
Well,
further?
I think from there you get into sports and you get into coaches and you get into parents, and you watch the way parents interact with their children, the way they interact with other players on the teams, the coaches that inspired you through leadership and the gift of giving you confidence in yourself, and perhaps teaching you lessons when you performed or you didn't perform. And then clearly reading for me was a tremendous learning. My management would tell you that the worst time of the year for them is the week after I get back from summer vacation.
Oh, really?
Because
all those reads?
I read, I try to determine how it applies to the business that we're running today and how we can make the company better. And from Jack Welch to Larry Bossidy to Barack Obama to Bill Clinton to whatever it might be, it's just leadership skills and how people attack the business problems, strategies, situations that they're confronted with each day.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you sort of always had a sense that you were a good leader and you wanted to move in that area. So let's talk a little bit about the business context and developing business acumen and the context in which you would lead. So what was that development like for you to get a strategic mind and to really understand, the market and the whole environment?
Yeah. The strategic mind is one that I think is people are blessed with, and an awareness. becomes evident in an individual when they enjoy the strategy of running a business. And it's very easy to think strategy is just how you're going to apply marketing dynamics to grow your company.
Yep.
For me, that is one element. And I think the broader set of skills that are required to running a business are a set of skills that are not comprised in one individual, but rather in a team of individuals. And so a lesson learned is to surround yourself with great people. And obviously continually evaluate the skill set of those people and continually motivate those people to grow in their own careers, to grow in the disciplines in which they currently operate, whether that's finance or legal or marketing, strategic planning, operations, and also to give them growth outside of those areas.
Yeah.
So constantly inspiring and growing a team around you allows you to apply and to think about strategy for your business in a different way. And then there's the leadership strategy, which is the visibility that's required.
Yeah.
It's, I like to think of it as there's a consciousness to leadership, there's a commitment to leadership, and there's a practice to leadership. People often will talk about the fact that, oh, well, he or she is a natural born leader. And I'm sure that there is some small percentage of people that are naturally born. In fact, we might say the president-elect, President Obama, might be a natural leader. But I think that his naturalness comes from the fact that he is consciously committing to practicing leadership every time he is in front of people. So he is demonstrating the consciousness of what it takes. He's committing to being aware of what it takes, and then he's practicing it by demonstrating it, by speaking it, by showing the attributes that that so many people look for and then will follow.
So consciousness, commitment, and daily practice.
Clearly.
One of the things you also mentioned, you made a distinction between business strategy and leadership strategy. And I just want to step back a minute and clarify. When you said business strategy, you said that's a gift that people have. So is that something that you feel like people are just born with, or can they also develop that in terms of
No, I think you can
mindset?
develop it. I mean, business strategy, what I meant by that was business strategy oftentimes people think is just strategic analysis of market dynamics and then how you react. So the proactive reaction to the set of circumstances or components of reality that are placed in front of you. And certainly teams can do that. But then once you decide the path that you're going to take, it's collectively creating a vision around that path and then coalescing the organization to understand with clarity where that path is going to take the company, and then rallying the organization to follow you during that journey. That's really what leadership is all about. So it's clarity of purpose, creating a vision, rallying the organization, and then clearly celebrating the rewards of the success.
And making sure everybody in the organization is aligned to what that vision is and understanding what they need to do to execute on it.
Absolutely. And understanding that the path along that journey often has obstacles, and I recently heard that there aren't obstacles in the path, that's actually the path.
Yeah, right. Let's redefine that.
That's
right.
Absolutely, especially in today's economic times.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute. What are you finding in your business in terms of the global and political and economic climate, in terms of your business challenges, and what are the implications for how you have to recalibrate from a leadership perspective?
Sure. Well, it doesn't take anyone too much effort to look anywhere today to read or listen and understand what the economic conditions are across the world, not just in the U.S. And therefore, the reaction that clients, you mentioned in the introduction that we work with the Fortune 1000, and the organizations that we work with are obviously calibrating their strategies for growth, global growth, based upon economic conditions worldwide. So what that often results in is a reduction in domestic relocations and perhaps an increase on their global footprint as they invest in India or China, or perhaps look to move operating facilities from one part of the globe to another part of the globe. So what it means for us is it's really a flexibility in where our staffing model is, an understanding of what we need to supply to our clients domestically, while we also look for global opportunity. Over the last couple of years, our most significant growth has really been on offshore. It's been on a global front. Our biggest, most rapid growing office to date has been our Singapore operation, where we've realized 25% growth both in revenue and profit and employee growth over the last several years. So we've been very, very fortunate to have an opportunity to grow with our client base in parts of the world where they see their future growth being as well.
So it's really just shifting where your resources are.
It's calibrating resources. It's also seeking opportunities to try to determine ways in which you can create new products, enter new markets, and use the existing staff that you may have that may not be fully occupied at this point in time on perhaps domestic relocation, but new opportunities open up career growth for them as well.
So what's been your greatest challenge in that regard?
I think the greatest challenge has been trying to stay one step ahead of the economic uncertainty and determining and forecasting where we think our business will be and where our clients think their business will be based upon their needs as we go forward. And then it's also positioning the organization for the dynamics of that churn as well as the growth. And understanding that you're dealing with people every day. I mean, I think any leader needs to have compassion, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges that a leader has whether they're in the office or they go home at night or they put their head on the pillow, they're worried about their employee base, every employee and every employee's family and the jobs that those employees have and the commitment that they've made to the organization over time, and hoping to be able to provide them with a career that gives them many, many years of growth and financial earnings with us.
Yeah, now some people would say, people are comparing, of course, this time to the Great Depression, et cetera, but we're probably in unprecedented times in terms of the level of magnitude just across the globe in terms of, all other economies being in a similar situation.
Yes.
And so when we're talking about forecasting, everybody's out there with their, their fortune-telling globe trying to, how do you do that when you're trying to be one step ahead of your clients, and yet how do they really know? Because we're living in sort of unprecedented, uncertain times.
Well, I think the answer is in that question, and that is the clients need to know. And we need to uncover with the clients what it is that they know. So clients know where they're expanding. Clients know where there are acquisitions. Clients know where there are consolidations. Clients know where they're going to move a division out of one part of the world and perhaps, grow another part of the country. So with that knowledge, we have to be very close to our client base and understand what the dynamics of that moving patterns are, so we can have the teams that work on those accounts properly staffed and trained and prepared to deliver the services and create the expectations that the customers have.
So you're finding that pretty much for the most part that they do know how they're responding.
They know better than I know.
Yeah.
Collectively, I think together, we are 70 to 80% confident that together we can forecast where we're going to be longer term.
Okay. So what would you say, now you've been at Cartus, or some version of Cartus, for 32 years. Looking back on your entire career there, what would you characterize as your greatest achievement to date?
I think my greatest achievement would be the fact that when I hear people say, thank you for leading, thank you for inspiring, thank you for providing us with a clarity of purpose and vision, thank you for being visible, thank you for really being an open communicator and an approachable individual who has continually shared with us the vision for the organization and has participated in the growth.
And what would you say are your key learnings through all that?
Humility is certainly a key learning. Never forget your roots.
Yeah.
Never get caught up in, I always tell my children, when you go to Stu Leonard's or Big Y or ShopRite on Friday or Saturday, they don't ask you what your title is or for a business card. They ask you for a check or an amount of money. And so it's not about who you think you are. It's about what do you do during the week that brings value to either the organization that is paying you to do the job that they expect you to do, and are you bringing value to people that work with you? At the end of the day, if people say, I enjoy working here, and you're part of the reason, then I think I've been successful.
Yeah. So what other advice would you give somebody starting out early in their career who aspires to leadership and maybe running an organization someday, such as you are?
Yeah, read.
Yeah.
Read.
Yeah, and more read.
Listen, observe, ask a lot of questions, emulate, seek mentorship. I'll never forget the day my father-in-law said to me, you need to start reading the Wall Street Journal instead of the New York Post. And I jokingly said, the Wall Street Journal doesn't have a sports page. Why would I do that? And it was something that forever will remain in my mind because it was a sign of ignorance at that point in time as far as what you need in life to be a true business leader, or what you need to be more successful perhaps in business than you might otherwise be. And so I carry that and I repeat that story 100 times a year because it really, in my mind, said, okay, that was a wake-up call for me. And then from there, as I said earlier, looking for people that have done it. It's not about recreating the wheel. I know it's a cliche, but it's really about looking for people that have done this and you've liked what you've seen in them, and find a way in which you can integrate that into your style because it's worked to inspire you, and therefore I'm sure it's going to work to inspire others. And that's really what the name of the game is. The formula is really inspiring people to believe in you as a leader and to follow you on the path by which and where you want to take them.
What's your greatest inspiration?
I think my family, you know, the push that they give me every day, my children, my granddaughter now, my background, never losing sight of where I came from. I have more today than I ever thought I would ever achieve in my life.
Wow, I just want to pause from it. That's a really incredible statement, which a lot of people couldn't say.
You know, I'm very proud of that. Yeah, and it means a great deal. And so therefore, it's an inspiration to move forward. But at the same time, I know that I earned it.
Yeah. So what do you want your legacy to be? When all is said and done, what do you want to leave behind people to say about Kevin Kelleher?
He was a good guy. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Given how you've inspired people and all the things you've done.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He helped me.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for coming.
I appreciate it.
Okay. I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Until next time, thank you for joining us.